In part one on this Chevy Trax, we had gotten this car in after the dealer had threw the parts cannon at it by putting a new spark plugs and a new coil pack on this thing, and still had a misfire. At that point, they told her that it's going to take a new motor. Cylinder number 3 is completely dead, and they quoted her $10,000 to replace the motor. She was no longer willing to trust them with the work, so she brought it over to my shop, and we figured out that it has 2 burnt valves. I believe it was on the intake. Don't remember for sure. It's been a little while. So I sent the head off to the machine shop, and now in this video we've got the head back, and we're going to install this head, put new timing chains and tensioner and the whole works in the timing system there. We're going to install all of that. I will link the previous video in the comments section. Stay tuned because this should be a pretty good video. We are back on this Chevy Trax. I've got my head back from, or the head back from Donnelly Automotive Machine in Decatur. It looks like a brand new head. It's all cleaned up. New valves on cylinder number 3. It's been milled down. It was a little uneven. They took off 4/1000ths to get a good sealing surface there, so this head should be like a brand new head. We're going to have to reassemble this thing. As you can see, there's the old valves. If you're in the central Illinois area, I would highly recommend Donnelly Automotive Machine. They're not a sponsor of the channel, probably don't even know about my channel, but these guys have been doing it for a long time and they're very reliable. They are very busy, but they got me this thing back in about 10 days. So yeah, we're gonna get started reassembling. Yeah, it's just a matter of putting everything back together and we'll clean up all of these pieces. These pieces go down in here. That's going to be for our valves. That's our hydraulic lifters, and kind of a weird little setup there, but yeah, it works, I guess. So yeah, we'll get started putting this all back together. We're going to put some assembly lube on it. I'll probably put some of this engine assembly lube on there, and it's either that or I've got some schmutz grease. So go ahead and get all these cleaned up, put this all back together, put our cams back in, clean up our cams obviously, put those all back together, and this thing should be about ready to go. So go back on there. I'm probably going to skip through some of this, and I apologize. However, I am really pushed for time, and this thing needs to get back together. Here we go. Cams are in. Everything's together on the head. I put my hangers back on there. These bolts have a sequence to go through, 71 inch-pounds. You want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and you 5, 6, 7, 8, something along that line. But it's there is a sequence for tightening those down so you don't put the camshaft in a bind. And it's 71 inch-pounds, not very tight at all. These bolts you do not have to replace because they're not a stretch bolt. Make sure that all of your hydraulic lifters are installed properly, and then all your rocker arms are installed as well. Okay, we now have this cleaned up over here. This surface is all cleaned up. You'll want to make sure that you blow out all of these holes. Make sure there's no oil, antifreeze, any kind of liquid in those holes, because if you have that in there, there is very little of a wall here, and when you go to tighten that down, if there's enough fluid in there to where the bolt comes down, makes contact with the fluid, since it can't escape, you will more than likely crack the block. now you've toasted your motor. So I usually just take and stick a blowgun down through there, put a rag across there, blow it out. It's clean, good to go. So make sure we get all of our junk off the cylinders here. Make sure all of that's clean, nothing's on there. We'll want to take, before we put it all back together, I'm gonna go ahead and put or before I put the head gasket on, I'm gonna go ahead and take a brake clean all that off, make it dry, nice and shiny dry. So we'll do that, and then we're ready to put our head on there. So I usually just mist it real fine there, and just kind of give it a wipe down here. Make sure that we don't get any of this rag stuck in any of the ports here, because it's sharp edges there. But you want that oil off of there. You want it a good, clean, dry surface. Wipe this down. Same way with here. And sometimes these rags can leave some of these pieces of your rag in there, so you want to be careful with that as well. Sometimes it's better to just use some of those blue shop towels, but I don't have any of those, so these will have to do. All right, now let's come over here, get our head gasket out of here. You know, we got a good head gasket because it's that color. No, the valve cover gasket's going to be good because it's blue. So put this head gasket on there. This is a multi-layered steel gasket, which is pretty much what everybody goes with nowadays. Put that right there. There's only one way for this to go in there. Please go. There's the locating pin there, needs to sit right there. Okay, now make sure all of our holes line up here, which they do. And as you'll notice, these center two don't have any holes to allow antifreeze up through. That's for more even distribution of the antifreeze, because it comes in the front, so they got to push it all the way to the back of the motor. So all right, we can see this says top, so this is top. We're ready to place our head on top of there. Now you'll need to put on new head bolts, because those are stretch bolts. I've got new head bolts here. You know they're good head bolts because they're factory, because the packaging is blue and white, so you know they're good. All right, somewhere in all this mess we've got other bolts. Yeah, but here's our head bolts. So gonna go ahead and put that head on there. We're gonna torque everything down. I usually oil the bolts before I put them on there with real light engine oil, like a 5W30 or even a 0W20, just because you don't want a lot of oil on those threads, but you want enough to make so that it has a good seat. So make sure that the bottom of our head here is clean and dry, which it is. I've checked that several times. That's clean, dry. It's ready to go on. So I'll bring you guys back whenever I get some of this stuff done. Get the head on there, get it torqued down, and then we'll get started on our timing chains and all that good stuff. So yeah, I'll be back shortly. We're back on this thing here, but this particular engine, I figured out, does not have any timing marks. So usually they'll have timing marks here. This particular engine does not have timing marks. So I was not aware of that, and I did not mark the old chain when it came apart, thinking, you know, I could just put a new chain on there with new timing marks. We're good to go. Well, that's not the case. We have to have a tool there's got to be a camshaft locking tool that goes in right down there. There's a plug you pull out of the side of the, here, let's get a light. Pull that plug out of the side of the motor. That will lock our piston at top dead center compression stroke. Then we put camshaft locking tools back here. And then you also have to make sure these tone rings are correct on the front of the camshafts here. So there's special tools for all that. I did not have that. I did go ahead and special order Saturday delivery, get these lights on, from Freedom Tool. This is not a sponsored video whatsoever. This is a, I've ordered tools from them before. It has worked out good. They are quick. The tools are, you know, decent quality, decent price. I think these are probably Chinesium, but hey, it worked. They had it on hand. They've got a ton of tools on hand, so I'll go ahead and put the link to them down in the description below. But again, this is not a sponsored video. I paid full price for these tools. If they want to be a sponsor, they can. But this tool right here slides in, locks the camshaft, and then this tool comes into the back, and you slide this in. So this, the one is right. This one's not set correctly, but that will lock both camshafts in the position that they need to go. And then, so we take a wrench, and you want to put a wrench onto here, turn this thing, lock that in, go down, lock the crankshaft. I'm going to go ahead and get that plug out of there. We'll lock the crankshaft, go ahead and get on with it. So it's probably a metric, but I got a 7/8 to work. Let's go ahead and hold that. All right, now let's get this thing. Those are both in there. Okay, that's locked. Now we will need to undo that. I think it's a Allen. I'm gonna make a guess of 7, which is probably not right. Definitely not. We're gonna be looking at an 8mm Allen wrench. Let's go ahead and pull this plug out of here. Okay, now let's go ahead and pull this off of here. So now we will need to turn that crankshaft, and that should coincide with the piston, number 1 piston. And I can see the piston. This should fit in there tight. Yep, it does. Now, let's see if we can turn this motor by hand. Nope. Okay, now, see the pistons coming up. We should be coming up here. There we go. Now, the piston is at top dead center. Now, I don't like how loose that is, but I guess that's the way it's supposed to be, huh? It's probably because of my Chinese tool. These are locked in. The crankshaft's locked in. Now we should be able to put our timing chain on. Actually, we want to put our gasket on first. The gasket goes behind the timing chains here. We're gonna need to clean all that off when we get everything ready to go. I think I'm probably, hopefully not blocking you guys too much. It's really hard to get you guys a good view here. So at all of these connections here, we're going to want to put silicone RTV, because you know, it's not a perfect fit. Let's get our gasket. Actually, let's go ahead and put RTV. I think we're gonna go ahead and put RTV. Actually, let's get our, I'm gonna get our chain and stuff laid out, and then we'll get that RTV and stuff on there, because I don't want that to set real long. Okay, so we have some ultra gray here. You know it's good because it's gray. Put a little dab on that. Make it thick enough so that it seals. Same way here. Okay, now we have to go down here, clean as best we can. Oh, we got way too much on there. Way too much. Good enough for both sides here. Okay, now go ahead and wipe this oil. This engine incorporates the oil pump in with the front cover and all that, so we got to make sure that all that is clean. Now let's put our timing chain on. Okay, well, I have got this thing back. Okay, so whoops, that's not gonna work. That needs to come back. So I've been messing with this thing because I feel like this chain is just a tad bit too loose, but you know, it seems like that's probably the way it's supposed to be. So we'll see what we can do here, because I've tried to jump that thing one cog and it won't go. Like, the only way it will go is this way here. So I'm hoping that this is right. We'll turn it a couple of times and then make sure. We'll put this tool back in over here, put this back in, just make sure. So I'll turn it several times, because if I'm being perfectly honest, I don't trust this timing method here. This just seems like a dumb idea. I don't know why. There must have been some engineer that said, you know, why don't we just make this like this, and this just seems like a better idea, and somebody wasn't brave enough to stand up to him and say, no, that's not the way we do things. So all right, well, according to GM, I'm doing it right here. So let's go ahead and install our new tensioner here. Come on. Okay, now we'll go ahead and put that thing. Okay, now we can put that in there. All right, I think we might be on the right track. Let me double check. All right, well, I'm back, and as you can see, I did kind of skip ahead here, and I apologize for that. The only problem was I was getting frustrated. My RTV was starting to set up, and yeah, it just wasn't going right, but I did finally figure it out. The chain has to be, the crank had to be turned, and it was one tooth off. But now, as we can see, we'll get my tool here, and I should be able to lock this in down here if the engine didn't turn. Okay, as you can see, that thing is in all the way. Then we can also lock these in up here. Everything fits perfect. So it's perfect, everything works. That's the way you should be able to do it. Now, since I went with the cheaper Chinesium tools, this is not fitting as perfectly as what I would like. Freedom Racing does have the higher quality tools available. So yeah, I think I would probably spend for those, but I should have spent for those, but you know, I didn't. Then after we get all of this done, now we've got to adjust the signal rings, tone rings for our sensors. So what we've got here, we got to be able to set this down in there, and this is actually supposed to set all the way down against However, because this is a cheaper made tool, it's hanging up, the center right here is hanging up here. But as we can see, if it wasn't for this center, this would be able to set down completely down against here. So our tone rings are in the right place, because these are adjustable. If we have to adjust them, we take this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, take these covers off. There's a nut on the end. You have to take this piece off, and then this will go in between here. It will set and it'll bolt down, right? Use those bolts, it'll bolt down. Then this will come up and lock into our gear here. And the reason it does that is because once you loosen those nuts, they will be able to turn on the cam. So you do not want these to turn. You want these to stay here. And then all we want to turn is this right here, these tone rings, so we can get that tool to set down on there. Everything is timed. It should work the way it is. If we get some codes, we may have to come back and tweak these things here, but with everything that I'm looking at, this should be properly timed and adjusted. So why they do it this way, I don't know. I don't like that system. There's too much room for error. It's stupid. They could have done it a lot better. They used to do it a lot better. The old 2.4 Ecotech, for as bad of a motor as that was, that timing chain setup is a much better setup than this here. But that's the cards we're dealt. That's what we got to deal with. So we're going to go ahead and make the best of it. Yeah, again, I would spend, you know, if I'd have it to do over with, I'd spend the extra money to go with the quality made tools that Freedom Racing has available. But yeah, I didn't think I could spend the $300 versus, you know, the $200 here. So this works. You just have to use your imagination and hope it works. So we're going to button everything else up here. You guys know how everything goes, I'm sure. So I'm going to go ahead and get this put all back together. We're going to put new injectors in this thing. The customer did okay that. I don't know if I stated that before. And put all the intake back on. We're just going to put everything back together. And once this thing is back together, I'll bring you guys back and we'll do the first startup. So for you guys, it'll be like right away here shortly, about 10 seconds. For me, it's probably going to be a little bit. So stay tuned. We'll get this thing running here shortly. Well, I'm sorry everyone. I got this thing started and remembered I didn't have it recorded. I apologize. But it's running. It's running really well. I believe there's some hydraulic lifter noise up top there yet, but that should clear up. It's cleared up a lot from what it was already. So yeah, we'll have to drive it a little bit. We're going to do an oil change on this thing. Yeah, I apologize. I was going to get the first start on camera, but that's frustrating. Well, okay, but as you can see, it's running pretty good, nice and smooth, has no misfires. There's no check engine light on in the dash as of yet. And I just locked the doors. Oop, come on. Yeah, so as of now, there's no vibration. It's running good. We'll get this thing buttoned up, put some of the guards and shields back on it. Let it run here for a little bit to try to get all the air burped out of the system here. We'll let it warm up the temperature, and then I'll put the radiator cap on. The good thing is I'm not seeing an excessive amount of bubbling coming up. We're going to check for leaks, obviously, make sure we don't have any leaks. And yeah, As long as nothing comes up, no check engine lights come on, nothing like that, I think we're going to be good here. And but I'm going to bring you guys along when I go to do the test drive. Again, I'm very sorry. I was going to get the first start on camera there, but I totally forgot it. Got in my own little world and just failed to do that. So take my word for it. It runs good. It started right up. Didn't have to crank very long at all. So got to take my word for it this time, I guess. Well, we've taken this thing up to temperature. We've got the antifreeze all topped off now after it burped all the air out of it. I've went ahead and changed the engine oil and the filter. As you can hear, it's running much quieter. So let's take this thing on a test drive, bring it back, check for leaks, and let's see what this thing runs like. I mean, it idles good, seems to run okay. I do want to say that I apologize for kind of skipping through everything as much as I did. I just couldn't hardly see this. I mean, this is going to be a long video the way it is, and I didn't want to drag this thing on out into 3 and 4 parts. So I did skip through a lot of it, and for that I do apologize. Get the seatbelt buckled. For that I do apologize. However, I tried to hit on the high points and some of the things that I thought might be interesting. So one of these days I may get good enough where I have several different cameras, several different angles, and get you guys through a whole engine disassembly, reassembly, and the whole ball of wax, so to speak. So first of all, the misfire is gone, which it should have been, because we obviously had a major problem with the valves on that thing. I suspect it was probably the injectors not firing correctly, or the machine shop said they've seen this happen on engines with turbos, so gas engines with turbos, and especially if the injector's not firing correctly. So we went ahead and put brand new GM injectors in this thing. It's not that much money. I believe they're like $35 a piece, so it's like 150 bucks for all 4 of them. It only makes sense to replace all 4. So yeah, I mean, it's running good. There's no check engine light. Hopefully we didn't do any damage to our catalytic converter. I'm sure it didn't help it anything by dumping raw fuel into the exhaust like it did. When I started it, there was raw fuel that came out of the exhaust. So yeah, this thing was putting some raw fuel down through there. No compression, blowing it straight out the exhaust. But the AC is still working. I mean, it's only got 101,000 miles on it, so should be good to go for a while, hopefully. I did check the turbo while I had it apart, checked the end play, and made sure it rotated well, and there was no problems there. That was one of the concerns I had as well, that the turbo was, you know, maybe faulty, but I didn't notice anything on that. So yeah, it runs good, drives good. So yeah, I think my bill for her is gonna be about 1/3 of what the dealership quoted her, which is to me is, you're taking a little bit of a risk when you repair an engine like this, especially some of these new small liter gas motors. But I feel like sometimes we as mechanics have become parts replacers, as in, well, the valves went bad, we'll just replace the whole engine. However, on some of the Ecotech motors, you do have to be careful because they will start to use a lot of oil. So the bottom end of those are not real good. So you got to be a little careful with repairing the top end of some of these motors, just because of some of the problems you'll run into there. But I hope this works out for her, because she was not going to be able to afford repairing it at the dealership. So yeah, I hope this works out. I think it should. I don't see any reason why not. It runs good, idles nice, quiet running motor. When I pulled the oil filter out, I checked it for aluminum shreds and shards and any kind of aluminum pieces in there, or even brass, copper, whatever, and there was no shiny parts in there. So I feel like I feel like the motor's in pretty good shape. I feel like it should be able to handle the new head, or the remanufactured head. So should be good to go. But yeah, I'm going to take this thing back to the shop. We're going to go ahead and check the engine for leaks, check for any antifreeze leaks, any kind of leaks at all, repair those if they are there. But if not, this engine should be, or this car should be ready to go back to the customers. So I will go ahead and end this video with you guys here, because I don't think there's anything more that needs to be said or recorded here. So I'd like for you guys to go down into the comments section, let me know what you think. Did we do this? Was this good, or was this a bad idea? I feel like it was a good idea. I feel like we saved her a lot of money, and I feel like it'll do okay. But what do you guys think? Then I'd like for you to like this video, share, subscribe to the channel. Helps me out a bunch, and it doesn't cost you guys anything. And again, I appreciate every one of you for being here. Y'all have a great day. Until the next time, I will see you later.